want me to jump out?
Hello, everyone. My name is Travis Bailey. I'm talking tonight a little bit about fatherhood, and have some people hopefully coming through this evening to kind of help facilitate the conversation. We're going to be talking about fatherhood and how we are responsible for covering not only our children, but children in our communities. So I want to get started. Right now we have Dr. Tom Curran on with us. Did I say that right?
Tom Curran, that's right.
That's right. He is an awesome man. I visited his website in the very brief couple of moments we've got an opportunity to speak. And he has a wonderful work that he does with his children, and I'm sure with many children around him. As I do some of the same thing. I'm a youth pastor. I have 5 children of my own. And, I'm really trying really hard to cement this fatherhood thing in my community. I'm connected to a lot of people who are dealing with the absence of fathers in their life. And I just want to make sure I'm doing all I can to help inspire somebody to try a little harder. So without any further ado, I actually got on Periscope earlier today, and I asked some single moms a couple of questions about, what's hard for you? What's hard to explain? What's hard to deal with when it comes to, bringing that relationship together where you have to, set the expectation that, dad is either not going to be here or not as consistently as you would like. I got some very interesting conversation there from that. A little bit about stepfatherhood, and that's something I'm very familiar with. And even things down to how to introduce your children to someone new. So before we get into any of that, I wanted to just talk about the lack of fathers and what it really means to be a father in 2015. So my first question for you is, well, actually, it's not even a question. I just would like for you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. So thanks, Travis. I appreciate that. It's great to be on with you. So my wife and I have we've been blessed with 9 children. And when I think about what we do, I've been doing ministry work to help people grow in their relationship with God in a Christian context, so through Jesus Christ. And I've spent over 25 years now doing that in a variety of ways. And one of the things that has happened in my own life in ministry is, as my own family has grown, I've been married 21 years, more of my focus has been on the urgent need that we have to help moms and dads realize how important that they are. They can oftentimes just get overwhelmed by the things that are happening in their own lives or even in their own relationship. And it's hard. I mean, I consider being a dad exhilarating and exhausting. And it's both, and so, and somehow they're intimately connected. You don't get to the deep exhilaration of being a dad other than through the exhausting work of pouring yourself out. And so, Travis, one of the first things that I would share is that I've discovered more and more the longer I've been a dad, that being a father is not something I do, but rather it's a deeper manifestation of who I actually am. And I think that's one of the most important ways for us to recover a sense of the gift of being a father is that, okay, I'm Tom and I'm married to Kerry and I'm the father of these kids. But the more that I've realized that I live well as a father, I'm actually living well as Tom. I'm being more me instead of, oh, that's an external burden. That's a chain or ball and chain I've got to look at. No, wait a minute. No, I become more fully and authentically me the more I'm willing to be a dad.
Right. That's such an awesome statement, man. I'm actually learning a lot about myself too through fatherhood. My father and I actually didn't get as close as we should have been until I left home. And so, there's a lot of things I learned on my own. There's a lot of things I took from him. And, I kind of got the opportunity to decide what kind of father I want to be. And I love that. I love my kids. I love spending time with them. I'm working on my work-life balance because I have 3 jobs on top of being a father and a husband. And, I really want to make sure that I am impactful in their lives, that I'm not so busy where they don't understand or they don't realize how much I love them, how much I care for them. I really do enjoy this, and I thank you for coming on with me tonight. I really, really appreciate it. So if you don't mind me putting you on the spot a little bit, for those that are dealing with relationships where, fathers are absent, so more or less talking to those fathers that probably should be there. I give you a little bit about my life. My oldest daughter is 10, and I see my daughter every other weekend. She lives about 25 minutes from here with her mom and her stepfather. And so in the beginning, I had to work really hard to kind of be okay with the idea of somebody else having a hand in raising my child. And, it wasn't the easiest thing to deal with. But, at the end of the day, I understand that as long as I pray and as long as I instill in her those values, when I have her, she'll be fine. So my question to you is, if you've had any interaction with, co-parenting situations or stepfather, stepmother situations, what has generally been your experience, and what kind of information would you share with those people that are kind of dealing with the strains of it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's not an easy one because so often, right, we're talking about circumstances and situations that are unique to their own lives, right?
Right.
So I've talked to parents who are now in a situation where they have a step parent involved, and it's like, well, my spouse abandoned me, right? And now that's a very different thing than, we just couldn't get along, and so we needed to separate, and then things didn't happen. So the variety of reasons why a marriage fractures is they're so very different. So one of the things that I encourage is to look at the good of the child as the most important thing, right? So how do I want to make sure that for the sake of my child, how do I invest in my child through somehow still trying to make whatever relationship I can work with my former spouse or the mother of my child, right? And so if there's any way that I can influence my daughter or my son when I have them under my roof, that's going to be the first thing. But I don't want to try to get at the mother of my child in some kind of way by playing good cop, bad cop. And I see that happen too often, that you have hurts and wounds that come from the mother and father, their relationship, that somehow the child continues to bear the burden of those wounds. And so it's like, okay, we don't want our situation to wound our daughter or our son any more than maybe has happened. How do we try to limit that? How do we try to help there be healing if there has been hurt? And how do we try to look for the best for that child going forward? That's at a general level. It's not really very specific. Does that help at all?
No, it does. It does. I think it's very much to the heart of the issue of some of the women I've spoken with, and it's so often that you see that kind of behavior, man. And it's so unfortunate because the idea of the child being the most important thing is being missed. And it's so sad. It really is. But the good thing is, there are people that want to do more. There are coaches. There are, abundance of men that want to be, that positive influence in somebody's life. And, that's really what I stand for. And that's really what you stand for. And, it's just a good feeling to know that you've had a positive impact on somebody's life like that.
Travis, you and I were talking before we went on live, and we shared about this image of the father as a roof, providing a sense of covering over the family that's in. And so I think it's a powerful image. Is there anything you want to share about that with those who are listening or watching? And we do want to welcome Taylor and Timothy, who have also joined us in the room. I've had a chance to be part of Timothy's blabs before, and I know that he'd have a lot to say. Travis, if you haven't met him yet, I think you'd very much enjoy Taylor. I think you'd find him to be a fellow who shares a lot in common in terms of what does it mean to be an authentic dad, and how that's so important in the life of children. But back to my question, Travis, the sometimes it's hard for men to realize the difference that it means to be a father, and to talk about what it means to be the father as a roof.
Well, for me, it's that protector, it's that provider, it's that person that really
A covering.
exactly. You know, the way things work in my house is that I am the roof of my family. I provide. I go to work every day. I come home. I clean behind them. I let them know I love them. I want to be that catch-all for them. I want to be, even though I'm, supposedly at this time, and I say supposedly because I don't, rule with an iron fist or anything. But I kind of stand in this place where I have been through these things, and I don't want you to have to go through what I went through to understand what life is really about. And so if there's anything that I can do from that level, where whether it's me and my wife coming together, or whether it's just me, as long as we're making those choices that are beneficial for their lives, and explaining to them why this is happening. I am that protector. I'm that water shield when the rain comes. I'm that person that's standing above them, making sure that they don't get wet. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe they get wet sometimes, but at least I'm there, and I can explain as to why it's happening.
Yeah, you're a haven, because if they're out and they're facing the harsh elements, they can run under your cover. It's like I love that beautiful idea. I've got you covered. It's like come out from under the cold, and a father, and one who provides fathering. It doesn't even have to be the father, right? That's a beautiful thing, is that there are a lot of fatherless kids out there, but who's got them covered? Who's watching over, who's protecting? It's such a really important thing. Travis, I want to give you an analogy that I use with my wife, Carrie, regarding being a parent, but I think this fits, being a father is part of that. That a father goes before, a father walks with, and a father stands behind. I go before you, I walk with you, and I've got your back. So not only are you a cover over, but you're also, I'm going to go before you. And these are the words we use. I'm going to go before you, and I'm going to provide some accountability. That means I'm going to say, these are ideals, these are standards, these are goals that we have for you. And I'm going to continue to lift them up in front of you to say, don't settle for less. Don't settle for less. You're going to walk towards this ideal. But second, I'm going to encourage you. And encouraging is something that you do right alongside. And that means you're going to affirm them, and you're going to say, you're doing a great job. I'm going to literally put courage into you by realizing you're not alone. I'm with you. I'm with you. And we're going to see you, you're going to move towards that goal. And then the third is support you. I've got your back. It's that Jesus, one set of footprints. It was when I carried you. Because you know what? Sometimes it's just too hard. It's just too much. So I've got your back. I'm going to support you. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to encourage you. But I'm going to go before you, and I'm going to raise up an ideal for you that is a noble ideal, a heroic ideal for your life. And I'll hold you accountable to that as well. So a father and fathering in the life of a young person is supporting them, encouraging them, and holding them accountable to the highest ideals that they can strive for.
That is so, and that's the beauty of fatherhood, that so many people don't understand it that way. We just kind of see this fatherly figure that's supposed to be the authoritative one, that's supposed to, make sure his last name is carried out. There's that piece is so often missed, and it's so important. We're not just put here just because, we help make you. There's more to it, and it's so important to me because of the mistakes that I made in my life. It's so important for me to steer my kids away from that. Every night when they're sleeping, I'm praying over them, that they don't have to walk in my footsteps to learn the true meaning of life and to really be close to God. It's very often that I think about my past, and it's not that I was a terrible kid, but, I was very blessed to be raised with both of my parents, and, they're still together today, and, they've done everything they can for me, and I'm 34 years old and they're still calling saying, what do you need? But as a father of a young family, there are a lot of growing pains. There are a lot of growing pains for me. There are a lot of growing pains for them. And every day is a new adventure. And I'm having to put on my fatherhood cap every day and kind of, start a new journey every single day.
So Travis, well, you just raised something I think that is so important, is that so much of your own confidence as a dad, and maybe even the mirror that you use to reflect on yourself as a father and your own fathering, is the experience that you've had in your life being fathered and how that continues to today. And I think that a lot of men struggle to step up into the fullness of their fathering role because of their own personal history of how they were fathered or how that father was absent. And so they don't know what to do. They're literally paralyzed. They're afraid. They lack confidence. They don't know how to step into a role that they didn't have a positive experience of in their own lives. And so it can create this horrific, tragic pattern that just cycles down generation to generation. If I wasn't fathered, now what do I do? Does that make any sense?
It makes a bunch of sense, and that's where, the education piece has to be there. That's why we have to do so much more as fathers who, quote unquote, get it. We have to be willing to share that kind of information. We have to be able to, go into, like, there's a young man that was raised up in my church. Really, really good guy. Him and his girlfriend, they brought a child into the world. And so one of the first questions to me was, what am I doing? This guy's 21 years old. He's a college grad. He's just really getting into the meat of his life. And, he's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. My father wasn't there. And, it was through conversation that we were able to encourage him and kind of, hey, man, it's one day at a time. Everything that you do from here on out has a direct impact on your child. And so if anything, it helps you to remain accountable, and I think it helped a little bit, but I think we as men are so prideful that we don't allow ourselves to ask those questions because we feel like we're supposed to have it together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great point. That is a great point. It's like, I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to have to acknowledge I'm weak or I somehow I lack something. That's a great point. I think that's where mentors come in. That's where, if you have role models that are dads in the community that people look to and they're like, that guy's a person of character, a person of integrity, that person's a real leader. And then that person steps up and says, you know what? The things that you just said. I'm not saying I've got it all together. I'm not saying I don't make mistakes. I'm not saying I don't. In fact, the strongest thing I do is I fall on my knees and I cry out for help that comes from beyond me. In fact, I thank God that I'm a father, because being a father reveals to me my need for my own heavenly Father. Because without him, there's no way I'm going to find the strength to do what is called forth from me as a dad.
That's right. That's right. Actually, why you mentioned that, I want to share something with you real quick, and maybe you've heard of it because he's pretty popular. But there's this book by, and maybe my light is too bright, but it's a book by Andy Stanley, and it's called Making Vision Stick. And it has transformed my view of leadership, not only in church or in work, but in my family. It's given me the opportunity to really write out a vision for my family, to write out what I feel God has placed in my heart and how to lead my family and how to steer my children into their own destinies, and not have to be overbearing and not have to be, there's so many things. The author is, Andy Stanley. It's an 80-page book. It's a quick read from Amazon, but it's wonderful. And it has really transformed a lot of how I think and how I do in my life. I've dedicated this season of my life to really pouring more into myself, to kind of understand more about leadership and how it can apply to different areas of my life. And I'm hoping that, doors will start opening where I can start sharing this kind of stuff out in the open, in the community more, because generally those people who are those fathers are your pastors, your community leaders. They're not really that dad from across the street. It's not as known as it should be. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that what you raise up for me is just an important way. Again, I link it back to God, that God is the author of life, and God's also the author of families. And he's the one who wants to etch into you, engrave into you some of his fatherly love and care, so that when those under your care are fathered by you, whether it's your own children or others that you get to express that type of fatherly care for, something of God gets reflected. And so when you talk about investing in yourselves, I think that men, they need to hear that kind of message. Like when we speak in front of groups of men and women, the message we'll speak to women are, come away on retreat, because you'll get a chance to be together and share and experience the warmth and love of God, right? Oh, and kumbaya, sing songs and hug and cry, right? Women love it. All right. When it comes to men, I say things like, all right, who wants to take down the work of the enemy who's coming against your family? And do you want to become a man of God that can stand up against the attacks that are coming against your spouse or your children today? Who wants to be part of the front line of what God is doing? Then men are like, yeah, I'm in, right? And they'll say, okay, great. That's right. Great. Come over here. You know what we're going to do? We're going to pray together, and we're going to sing kumbaya, and we're going to cry and all these other things. You don't lead with that. But it's one of those things where, as you know, men are often moved by that sense of conquer a challenge, right? So they won't work on themselves unless they can see that it's connected to a higher purpose that's outside themselves, unless it's a goal that is associated with some act of service that even requires a level of heroism or bravery. And so I think that that's a tremendous thing that men need to, how about this? Let God author in them his meaning of fathering. And as God authors in them their own deepest identity as a man of God, created in the image of God, the Father, then they're going to reflect in their lives a whole new meaning of fathering that they never would have accomplished on their own strength. And that's where the authority of being a father comes from. It comes from being in a relationship with the author of all fathering, who's the Father.
That is, I had to write that down. I'm going to make sure I give you credit and everything. That's an amazing understanding to come to, and I guess for us, the unfortunate part may be sometimes that, they don't know how to be that father, and they don't know how to pray, so our message has to be, what's the word I'm looking for? It has to be able to go over different types of generations and different types of people to be heard. Mm-hmm. And so, we have to do what we can to find those avenues to be that father in those communities, to be that brother in those communities, to be that friend in those communities. And, pride is such a terrible killer. And it comes so often with men. It's so hard setting up these kind of conference calls and everything. You would not believe the kind of this. Let me tell you what I do. I go through the women and I go and I say, listen, this is what I'm doing. If you know somebody that's interested, let them know. Maybe they can come on and just watch. And 9 out of 10, they don't come. And it's because, I don't want anybody teaching me how to be a father. That's not my goal. But that's what's heard because we are prideful creatures. We are the kings of our domain. And, we don't want or don't need, per se, anyone telling us what to do. And so that's been the hardest thing to get these ideas about fatherhood off the ground. But I think with people like you and the things that you're doing, and if you didn't get a chance to view Dr. Tim's website, I'm going to post it again. It is absolutely tremendous. It's got some great information up there. And I post mine as well, but I'm still getting there. But my point is just that, we could be doing so much more. And my goal tonight was just to explore ways to figure out, okay, what else can I do? Who else can I impact? And how can I do it without?
And I would say this, Travis, you're doing an important work. And what you've identified for me, several of the elements that are going to help men be able to take the step forward. The first is testimony, right? So men are more willing to listen, not just to like, okay, I'm an educated guy, listen to me. But no, testimony. This is the path I've walked, and I'm going to share it with you in a way that's transparent, in a way that's credible, right? That those are things that are going to lead to greater influence. That's the first thing. The second is you talk about being, you're showing what's at stake in this. the more that you can draw out for men what's at stake in them being the father that they now are, let's say biologically, or being willing to step up into the fathering role, even if they're not yet a father, or maybe they think, well, my fathering time is done because my kids are out of my house. No, do you realize how many, let's call them, the fatherless, right? The abandoned, the orphaned, they might be abandoned in place. They're in a house, but they're abandoned when it comes to fathering. And so do you realize the call, the opportunity you have to make a radical difference in someone's life? So if you can come up with a story of someone who literally experienced a rescue from just a path that would have led to their own destruction because a father stepped in. Fathering entered their life and provided them with the covering. They stood over them, right? And they also went before them, walked with them, and went behind them, right? That kind of story shows men what's at stake. They just might be willing to step up. And then the last thing was you give them something, a simple, practical step. Do this one thing. Can you do this one thing? And so if you can give them those few little handholds, it might be, one of those might be an open door for them to move out of a sense of pride holding them back, or resistance saying, well, this doesn't involve me. That's not my situation. No, if are you a man, this is your situation. Because the reality is this, is, we both know that if we were going down the street and we saw a young person, a young child about to do something tragically by accident, we'd rescue that child. We would, just because there's that bond of connection. There's a human being, a little child needs my help. There are little children who need your help. There are little children who need your fathering. There are little children who need your covering. Little children who need your accompanying, need you to go before them, go behind them. And you know what? You can change a life. You can change a forever if you're willing to step in and do a little change in your life.
And that's what it's about. That's all it's about, man. It's just daring to be uncomfortable. Daring
I like
to that and do something different. You have to. There's too much at stake. There have been too many things in the news and the media for us to sit back and say, well, my kids are okay. I hope those kids get it together. Yeah,
yeah, I can't live behind the walls. Cannot live behind the walls. And you know what I also love about what you do is you're like, you know what? It's the women who are the single moms, right? The moms who are saying, we've got my kids and my kids need a dad. That for you to be able to say, I'm going to be your voice. Look, you women, you have these burning concerns. You've got these throbbing needs, and maybe you don't have a place to let them be known. I will carry them out. I will be your herald. I will be your voice to the men, because maybe right now you're not able to reach the men because they're not going to hear it from you. I will bring it. I will bring your voice to them, and then I'm committed to bring them to you.
That is.
So you.
Wow.
There it is. So you're a mediator. You know what? In the scriptures, that's a priest's role. Right?
Yeah.
You're going to connect people to God and God to people. In this instance, you're going to be connecting the fatherless to the fathering of God. And it's the fatherless who are in the homes of those women, and you're going to bring the fathering care of God to them through the men that you reach. So there it is. You're going to take them. You're going to take the ones that God has the greatest care for, which is what? The Anawim, the poor ones of God, the widows and the orphans. So the father has a care for the orphans. And the father's going to reach those orphans through men who he can raise up as fathers. But he needs a prophet. He needs to raise up a leader who can say to them, do you hear the heart of God? Do you hear the breaking heart of God who's waiting? He's waiting for men to rise up and to say, we are going to rush out into the midst of the battle, and we are going to go to those homes, and we're going to make ourselves available to say, the Father loves you. We're going to provide covering. Go before, be with, go behind. Man, that's what you were made for, Travis.
Man, that's tall. Wow.
And you just thought you were doing a blab.
Yeah, this is great, man. What's this? Carol
It's a divine appointment.
oh, got somebody wanting to jump in. This takes men wanting to be accountable before they are ready to listen.
How y'all doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Hey, is it Travis?
Yes.
And Dr. Tom, how y'all doing, man?
Great. How are you?
I just want to commend y'all, man, for doing this blab. I was just sharing, matter of fact, one of my, I think it's safe to call him a friend of mine, Vango, he's in here. I was just sharing with him in a blab recently, man. I've been going through a blab detox because of the content, and I just want to commend the two of you, man, for putting this type of content out on blab, man. It's much needed. Believe it or not, I'm actually what drew me to this. I'm actually working on a book. I mentor a young man, and all the young men I mentor are all grew up without their father. They're fatherless young men, and so I take it very seriously. And it's interesting because I have 3 daughters, so my daughters are 19, 20, and 24. So I've always thought it was ironic that all my life I've always mentored young men. People always ask, why don't you have any sons? I'm like, well, I have a lot of sons. You know what I mean? I have a whole lot of sons. But God has put these people in my life strategically. And so, I just like to ask a question. One of the things I share with some of these young men is accountability, which is very, very important. One of my key messages that I share with them, and this is the talking point with all the young men I mentor. I tell them, I say, a selfish act creates an encounter, but a selfless act can establish a relationship. And the reason why I teach that to them is that, we can do selfish things that allow us to get so caught up in our flesh, that allow us to make decisions, and we get involved in relationships prematurely, as young men, and a child can be born through that premature relationship because it's a selfish act. And so what happens is we have so many young men who are growing up without a father, because what happens is when that kid looks at that act as a mistake, they see that child as a mistake because they've never built the relationship with that mother. So what happens is the whole time they're viewing that woman as, that was a mistake. I should not have gotten involved with her because of what happened. So what happens is every time they see that child becomes a part of the mistake. And that kid is burdened with this sense of abandonment. And it just rips me apart when I have conversations with some of these young men, because I was having a conversation with this guy. He was talking about the importance of a name. He was saying, it's very important we understand, what our name means. And I said, that's great, but I think it's the last name is probably more important than the first name. And what I was getting them to understand is that when a particularly young man is born and the father's not present, and he's carrying that last name, he's carrying that bloodline, he's carrying what should have been a gift to him, because what we don't understand as men is that our name is supposed to be a gift that we pass down to them, that they're supposed to cherish and say, hey, I'm giving you this because I was a caretaker of this name. I went through life making sure that my name stood for something. So I'm going to give you this gift so that when you take on this name, it stands for something. And the example I give to these young men is that I was born without my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was in my 20s, but I didn't miss out on anything because my grandfather was a key role in my life. I mean, he took me, and I have his last name. And he would always tell me, he would say, son, he would always say, oh my goodness. He would always talk about the importance of his name. He'd always say, son, respect the name. He said, respect the name. He would tell me, he said, your name. Oh, he would say, you would never outrun your name. Your name can go further than you can ever go. That's what he used to tell me. You can never outrun your name. He said, your name can go further than places that your feet will never touch. And what was so powerful about that, he was saying that if you take care of your name, and not saying that you're being perfect, it's not about being perfect. What I teach these young men is that it's not about being perfect. It's about being accountable. Just be accountable. As you're talking biblically, it's the difference between King Saul and David. When the prophet went to Saul, what happened? He acted like he did everything God told him to do. But when he went to David, David fell on his face and said, Lord, it's you I've sinned against. And he took on accountability for what he did. And God extended grace on him, extended mercy on him. During a time where he should have been killed or stoned to death. But God's grace was sufficient even in that time. And so, with all that said, man, I just want to just thank you guys. When I see blasts like this, I got to jump on, because it just makes me feel good to see that this is some good content, because the content I see on Blab, I like Blab. I love the platform. But the way it's been used, man, it's just like I can't stand it. But when I see content like this, and when I see men, and I mean that men, two men, I'm looking up right now with Travis and Dr. Tom. It just makes me feel good, because it's hard. People don't understand how hard it is to reach these young people right now. It's tough, man. It's not easy, man. If you're not Drake, Lil Wayne, it's hard to have an impact. And so what these men are looking for is and we gotta remember that. And I end on this note: even though they may not be listening to us, they're watching us. They're watching us. And so what we have to do is just stay the course, because what's going to happen is that one day something's going to happen, and they're going to see Dr. Tom, and they're going to see Travis, and because they've been watching you guys all this time, and they've seen everybody else just kind of let them down, they're going to come to you, Dr. Tom. They're going to come to you, Travis, and say, look, man, I know I wasn't really listening, but I've been watching you, and this thing you've been sharing with me, I want to listen now. I want to sit down and talk to you about this thing now, because now I feel like everything else has been proved. It's failed me. All these other people I've been following, they failed me. So the one thing I can share with men is that remember, you're being watched. When we take on this mantle and we take on this responsibility, say we want to reach out to our young men, they're watching us. And the greatest message that we share is not going to be with our words, but it's going to be with our walk. So I just want to thank you guys, man, and just want to jump in. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just get excited, because this is part of my life, and this is something I'm actually transitioning to doing full time. So when I hear stuff like this, it just makes me feel good, man.
Well, is there any information out there about your book?
Actually, man, I'm like, it's funny you mentioned that. I was working on the book the other night, and I was telling a friend, matter of fact, I was telling one of the guys I was mentoring, I'm trying to get to 20,000 words, because what I've been told, I'm self-publishing it, and not that it needs to be 20,000 words, but from what I've been looking at, so right now I still got a ways to go, but I've been working on this book for over a year. But if it ends at 10,000 words, whenever God says done, it's finished. I don't care if it's 80 pages or 200 pages. So I got a ways to go, but to let you know, the book is called Planted. And what it speaks to, it uses the biblical text where it talks about seeds being planted, some being planted on soil, some on rocky ground, some in places where there are thorns. And the whole concept of the book is to use that scripture to allow young men to understand that first and foremost, they are a seed. And also let fathers know you planted a seed, and to understand the responsibility that comes with planting. Whether you planted by mistake, whether you planted on purpose, you have to understand what it takes now to cultivate that seed. Because the difference between us and people that don't believe, and I'm talking spiritually now, is that when we accept that gift of salvation, we understand that there's a seed of righteousness that's been placed inside of us. And therefore, there's an assignment that all of us have. And so I know what my assignment is. And you said something so key, Dr. Tom, you said when you give them, I can't remember the exact thing you said, but you said you give them a task, or you give them something. When we give these young men an assignment, but let them know that not only are we giving you an assignment, but we're here to help you cultivate that assignment. We're going to be here with you, to help make sure that whatever this assignment that we've handed over to you, we're here with you, because we understand how important it is not to just give you something and just watch you take off with it, but to help you grow and cultivate this thing. So, but I got a little ways to go with the book, but I am working on a platform that hopefully will launch in January. That's going to have snippets of the book in there, because really what I want to do is kind of share, with people, because I don't want to just launch a book and people haven't really got an opportunity to meet me and understand what the book is about. So I feel like if they get an idea of where my heart is and what I'm trying to do, then that would at least probably allow people to understand, okay, then maybe I will, look at this book, because I want the book to be something that that maybe, community centers, churches, mentors, use to really help work one-on-one with young men.
Let me tell you before you jump off, man, there's a guy that just joined. That's DG Studio. He and I do some of the same type of things, but he's an awesome designer. He has some connections in the communities. He's a really good guy. So if you get a chance to follow him, it might be
fun. Yeah. What's his name? Is he in here now?
It should be, unless he left. Let's see, DGC Studio.
I think is he
Deshaun? But yeah, maybe
he's a programmer or developer or something, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I know exactly. I think I'm following him. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Hey man, we appreciate you, man.
No, man, I appreciate y'all, man. I'm gonna jump off, man. I didn't mean to take up too much of the blab.
Are you good?
Well, before you do, if it's okay, I just wanted to share a couple of things real quickly here. I love, first of all, beautiful, profound, inspiring. I love what you said. I love how you said it. It's authentic. It's alive in you. Very, very powerful stuff.
Thank you.
So just a couple of things to reflect back. Talked about accountability and how important that is, and how if these kids, if they can make that shift that you're talking about from a mistake to planted, right, from an accident to design, right, from not on purpose to on purpose, right, that's the bridge you want these kids to cross.
Yeah, that's the bridge. Yeah, I agree.
And one of the things that I've found with young people is that when they think about accountability as something imposed on them, then they feel trapped. But when they can hear accountability as something that comes from inside of them, it's like, I'm committing to that, then we as dads are going to help them be accountable to their own deepest ideals that we help them discover.
That's right.
And that's how we can help them move out of that selfishness to selflessness, because they want to give themselves over to a heroic ideal.
That's it.
And that's the vision that God can give them for their own lives.
Right. That's right.
So I think that's a beautiful way to help them take on something that maybe they've wanted to avoid all along, which is accountability.
And Dr. Tom, what you just said is so profound, because what it allows is these young men, and I don't want to just say young men and young women. God has just placed me to work with young men, but abandonment goes across the board, but particularly with some of these young men to understand what fuels their accountability. And for example, one of the things I talk about in the book is that sometimes, like for me, I had to get to a place of forgiveness. That was one of the first things I had to do. I had to forgive my dad. In order for me to get to a place where I could become whole and help others, I had to make sure, and I thought I had forgiven. But what I did was I was just kind of like avoiding. I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm over. I'm good. I'm fine. But I hadn't truly forgiven. And the reason why is I realized that, me raising 3 daughters, people always looked at me and said, man, you're such a good dad. You're such a good husband. You do all these good things. But I was doing it all for the wrong reason, because I hated my dad's guts and I wanted to be the exact opposite of him. So instead of me doing all these things fueled by love, it was fueled by hate. They were good things, but they were motivated for the wrong reasons. And so a lot of times when I speak to some of these young guys, they're doing good things, but they're doing it for the wrong reason. And sooner or later, if they don't get the right fuel in them to make sure that what's driving them is love and not hate. You see what I'm saying? Forgiveness and not, condemnation, all these different things. Then sooner or later, that thing that's fueling is going to take over. And they're going to start acting on that. And so what I try to do is to get them a place where let's find out first. And that's why the seed concept is so important to me, is because let's find out first where you were planted. Were you planted in soil? Were you planted on rocks? Were you planted? And I identify all those things. Were you planted amongst thorns? And I break that down to show them the examples of, okay, if you were planted here, this is what it means. And this is what you were surrounded by. And this is what was chosen. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the sower is always God, right? It's the Lord who's always. Exactly. So no matter, I love that. No matter where you're sown, it's God who's ultimately the source of your life.
Because it's so ironic you said that, because I go back and I talk about what Paul said. When Paul said, I planted, Apollos watered, but only God gives the increase. Mm-hmm. Only God gives the increase. You see what I'm saying? So each one of us, there might be a kid that, that may come to Travis, and Travis might plant a seed in his life and speak some life into him and allow him to see himself differently. But all of a sudden, Dr. Tom comes along and he waters that kid. And all of a sudden, that kid is able to take what Travis placed in him and then all of a sudden, you're able to kind of cultivate that seed and show him something even greater. But at the end of the day, only God gives the increase. Mm-hmm. And only God gets the glory out of it. You see what I'm saying? So we're, people, I've had people come to me when I speak to schools. They say, you're a life coach? I said, no, I'm a life servant. I don't want to get, that's who I am. I'm a life servant. I'm not a life coach. I'm a life servant. I'm here to serve, and that's all I care about. Because at the end of the day, that's really what ministry is. If you want to understand ministry or whatever it is, and I'm not trying to be religious or anything. I don't even like religion, but it's about service. It's about serving people. And when you have a heart for people, then you'll serve people, and you'll get out of yourself and what you're dealing with and what you feel like was has you so placed in a situation where you can't get out of. You're able to get out of that sometimes. And I'm going to tell you the greatest fulfillment. I was working with a young man just recently. God just put this guy in my life out the blue. I've told my wife, it blew my mind. I said, this guy is like a facsimile of me. No, I'm telling you the truth. I can bring my wife right here, right now. I said, it was scary. Everything he had gone through, everything that he wants to do, from his career to his struggles. Then one day he came by the house, and he's starting a clothing line. And so I was working with him because I do branding. So I was kind of going through him and just kind of just listening, critiquing some of his concepts and ideas that he had. And all of a sudden he just kind of went and just started talking about his dad, just out of nowhere, and said he just I didn't even know this about him. I thought I was just helping him because we had something from a creative standpoint in common. I didn't even know what God was doing. But all of a sudden, he shares with me that this summer was the first time he called and talked to his dad in 10 years. Wow. He's 21 years old, which means he was 11 the last time he had a conversation with his dad. Wow. And the whole time, he's just holding everything in. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, man, it was just ripping him to shreds how he was just feeling inside. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, and all I can do is listen, because another thing we got to do as mentors, man, we got to listen, man. We got to stop trying to be so interesting, but be interested. Sometimes we want to let them feel like, okay, let me show you something, tell you something deep. Let me tell you something I went through that you can't. No. Just listen. Just listen. You see what I'm saying? We want to be interesting, but we don't be interested.
No, I just think that what is the power of listening is what you're saying. I'm actually creating some space in me to receive you. And that's exactly what these young men haven't received, is as a man who says, I welcome you into my life. That's it. And so if it starts with that act of listening, it's like, you know what? I care enough about you to pay attention to you, to make some space to actually welcome you and your concerns and your questions, or just your sharing into my life. And I'm not looking beyond you to the next thing. That's right. I'm not just going to use you and then move on. No, that's fathering right there. Fathering, I've made space for you. So that's powerful. Hey, you know what? You have your book. Just take this recording and just transcribe it. And you're serious. You are so full of wisdom. It's beautiful. Thank you, man. Hey, when are we going on the road together? God's got something going on here. So.
Man, I'm following y'all, man. I'm telling you, man. I saw this. I got excited. I don't get on Blab much, but I'll go to the site, and if I just see anything, I'll log in. If not, I'll go back to something else.
Same here.
And I saw this, man. So that was me. I was the +1 because I'm not logged in. Well, because I wasn't logged in. So what happens is, if you're not logged in, you can click on it. But if I haven't signed in, you just automatically a +1. Yeah. So sometimes +1s aren't like just lurkers. Sometimes there's people that just want to listen. They're not even logged in yet. So, but once I begin to hear you guys talk, I said, man, I gotta log in and just listen. And then that's why I was the one to ask you about the book, about the author, Lisa Andy
Nice.
Stanley, because I'm always just trying to learn and see what people out there doing.
Hey,
And sharing.
look, his book is 80 pages, man, and it's effective. I understand
And that gave me inspiration when you said that, because I got way over 80 pages already.
and look at the size of it, man. I mean, it's small print, but I got highlight blood all the way through it.
Wow.
So,
And that's what men want. Men don't want long books. So come on.
That's a good point. That's a
By
good
the way,
point.
what is if you don't mind me, what's your first name? At least I'd love to be able to know your name.
Well, my first name is Askia. Matter of fact, I'll type it in. I have two handles. So sometimes you'll see me come under that handle. Street Prep is just one I come under.
Okay.
The reason why is because I was in a blab one time. This is why I kind of get out of it. I was in a blab one time. And because I mentor young men, and because the title changed immediately, and I was in the seat, but I'll be honest with you, I really wasn't paying attention because I was kind of working at the same time, and the conversation changed. Somebody said, well, let's change the title. And when somebody changed the title, somebody tweeted it out, and my name was in it. And it was like, it wasn't bad, but it was like, I don't want to talk about this, but it wasn't really good either. So my name is tweeted out there. So I was like, man, that's kind of messed up, man. So I had to make sure, man, that there's a level of accountability that I want to make sure I have, and that's the reason why I don't come on a lot, because I don't want to just jump into a blab where obviously that it just doesn't edify me. I want to get to a place where I can learn and grow, and just listening to you two guys, man, I was just learning so much from what you guys were sharing. That's why I was asking who the author was, and I was writing down stuff, man, and just trying to figure it. I had locked in your website, Dr. Tom. So I was just grabbing information, because I was like, are all those your kids on that site?
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
9 kids.
Hey, man.
I got 7 girls, so. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, 7 girls and 2 boys. Okay. A beautiful family, man. I saw the picture, man. Beautiful family, man. Beautiful family.
Thank you. In fact, they're calling me now, so I'm going to have to go be a dad. So
hey, man,
this has been really awesome.
That's a gift, man.
Awesome blip. Thanks.
Hey, man, thank you so much, guys, for doing this, man. Y'all don't understand. We need this, man. We need this because we need to be able to have conversations where we can figure out, I'll be honest with you. I've been in blabs, and I've heard atheists talk about how can we reach Christians and convert them, and forget that. How about we have a conversation on how can we reach young men and reach young people that are hurting, reach people that are going through some things and going through adversity and heartache and pain, and we can make a difference in their lives. Let's get out of this stuff about trying to make somebody think the way we think and see this. I don't care about that. I want to figure out how can we have an impact, on people's lives, man. That's what matters to me.
Well, I hope you guys can stick around. The next time I'm trying to do this again in maybe about 2 weeks or so. Then this is a good point to end on. I really do appreciate you guys' time and you sharing your stories. And if you guys can one more time post your links on the side just so that we can make sure. Actually, Blab has come up with new software to let you embed these on your website. So I got a whole page now with different conversations. So thank you for your time. I'm gonna watch the replay really quick, and God bless you all.
Thanks, Travis.
Take care, man. Thank you all.
God bless, guys. Good meeting you.
God bless.